Good morning, guys. It's Uche and Joku, Sneaker Principal. I'm sitting here in Hudson Park in New Rochelle, New York, Westchester County, and I'm looking at the water right now. Maybe you can see from this window right here. I'm at the it's not really a beach. I mean, there is a little beach over here, but it's a park. Right on the Long Island Sound, so I can see Long Island from here. I love coming here as often as I can to kind of clear my mind. For someone who is not a professional swimmer, I love the ocean. Maybe it's because of where I grew up in California. The beach was readily accessible to me. I could literally jump in my car and drive, I would say about 10-15 minutes, and I was right in Manhattan Beach or Hermosa. Or if I wanted to enjoy the crowd, I could go to Venice or Santa Monica. And not quite the same here in New York, but and I do miss California for all those reasons. But I love coming to the water here because it just kind of centers me. Sorry, my contact is like bugging. It centers me, and yeah, it's just water, you know. I mean, our bodies are like what, over 70% water, or whatever that number is. I should know that. And I feel connected to the water, so I love being in this space. So real quick, I just want to share with you something. This is my daily vlog entry. It's been a while since I did one. I was away last week with my family, so I just didn't have the time to really the time or space to really engage in deeper conversations with you about what's going on with me. So I was away with my family in Wichita, Kansas, and which was great. You know, it's been a while since I'd seen them, and actually over a year, and it's just good to be around people that you know and be around that energy of family. It's very, very important, and it also gave me time to like kind of reflect and think about my journey. You know, since leaving formal education, as far as being an educator in the public school system, I've been given the grace and time and space to reflect and think about the work that I've done over the past 18 years, and not only that, also reflect on what's next. And I'll be honest with you, what's next is concretely tied to my children. You know, as you know, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they're at a place where very soon my daughter's going to be starting school. She'll be 5 next October, and as of right now, thankfully, I'll be honest with you, thankfully, you know, we've been able to avoid having her be in the formalized school setting. And some people might say, and some people have said it, like, you know, like, man, for someone who committed so much time to public education, why would you know, deny your child the opportunity to be in those same spaces, to build relationships, and, you know, and get that socialization? And that's the problem, you know, for me, you know, because that space of socialization, I guess I didn't realize, or I did know, but didn't have the time and space to really reflect and think about it. How school socializes our children into spaces that we aren't able to bring them back from. You know, when we send our kids to school, what ends up happening, they are in spaces out of our control. They are impacted by the adults who are there, who have their own belief systems, their own agendas. They are impacted by the system itself that has its own beliefs and mission and agenda. They're impacted by their peers who have their own beliefs, agendas, and indoctrinations from their families in the system as well. So we have children who become drones, who kind of like move up in a path that is in lockstep with a system that might not, or belief systems and belief systems that might not necessarily be yours. And I know for a fact that I have been full lock and step. Is that the term? You know, been in that space. You know, my education has been through this system. And the thing about it is, you don't realize until you realize how indoctrinated you are into a space that often makes no sense until you're not in that space anymore. And you look back and you're like, wait a minute, that didn't make any sense. Or even worse, you're in it and you know it's not making any sense, so you try to make it make sense. And then you also have to contend with, hey, I can't go too far because I need to keep this job. I need to be able to make sure that I'm taking care of my children, or taking care of myself. So all these things really deeply concern me about what's in the future for my children. But not only that, now it's not just about my children, it's also about other children. Because like this weekend, being around my niece, being around my nieces, and just thinking about like what's next for them, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years from now, when they are where I'm at right now, or where their parents are, my siblings, what is going to be their reality? Is it going to be one that's just a repetition of what their parents experienced, or is it one where they're freed to be truly free thinkers and creators and make a bigger impact on society, or if not on society, for themselves and their own families, so that they can be a major leap into major leap progressively for their existence, whether it's wealth, whether it's creativity, whether it's just pure freedom to do what you want to do and how you want to do it, and not feel bound by rules that say you have to wake up every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, or 8 o'clock, or 7 or 5:30 in the morning, to go to a place where you sit there for 8 hours, literally for 8 hours, until you're told you can go, because again, that's not a reality for everyone. It's the reality for a majority. It's not a reality for everyone, and unfortunately, this is what we've been trained as educators to teach our children, or teach your children, that is normal. But we know that's not normal. We know that those of us who've been in those spaces have struggled and fighted, and we're riddled with anxiety, and we're just trying to find a way to breathe and feel free, right? So I say all this, and the question is, what is the solution? What am I proposing? What and you could talk about it all day long, but what is the solution to create those spaces, if not for yourself, for your children? And I really believe the solution is to harness my skills as an educator and start a school. If not starting a school, starting an alternative space that feeds into children. One thing I know is education is not cheap. No matter how much you want to say it's free education, it's not free education. It's based on taxpayers, people, and you have no choice in the matter. And listen, when you get your paycheck and you see half of your money gone, a portion of that money goes into education and military and other infrastructure, but it's not free. Trust me, I would love to get my paycheck and see 100% of what I earned in there, and being given the choice on how to distribute, funds to help society. But we have no choice in the matter. So education is not free. So I say that to say that, I want to create a space for my children that other children can benefit from. So I'm exploring starting a learning center. And this learning center that I want to start, I want to be able to afford some level of preschool learning activities for families out there who have children at home, and like, I want my child to get a couple of hours a day of organized learning, but in a way that's not sequestered to the traditional model of, everybody sit down in rows and let's do these things that regular schools do all the time under the guise of these are successful strategies, where we know that it's not. Listen, it's funny because I've seen this. I've seen children who are at home who have never set foot a day in school, in that traditional school model, and they can read, they can write, and they're not even 5 years old yet, But then I've seen kids who've been in preschool and pre-K and all that stuff and can't do anything. And the question is it the child, or is it the system? You know, this factory model where we force every child to do the same thing and inhibit growth and only allow growth to happen as a collective. That's a problem for me. And I want to create a space for families to be able to bring their children, you know, and be able to get, you know, if it's twice a week or 3 times a week or 5 days a week, just enough space for them to exercise their brains and learn, but also have the rest of the time to be children and grow and everything else. And I know some of you are going to say, but what about those of us who have to work full time? I don't have the answer for that. I don't know. But we got to try something, right? And I also want to have the space also be a conduit for families who want to homeschool their children. One of the things I've seen with homeschooling, especially when you are in more impoverished spaces, and I'm sorry, there are families out there who don't have a lot of money who are homeschooling their kids. And my question is always, you know, how are they able to access organized learning spaces? And what I mean by organized learning spaces, not the classroom sit down in a row, the workshop, the factory model. I'm talking spaces where they can come together and be pushed. They can be pushed by in organized class. I hate to say classrooms. I don't have the right word, but learning environments where maybe for a science class or a math class or social or literacy class, they can come down to the center 1 day or 2 days a week, work virtually, and work on projects that allows them to tie in all the other things that they're learning at home. You know, a place for them to be pushed. Because at some point in time, that homeschool child is going to have to go to college, right? Or going into the real world and be in spaces that's not home. And maybe not. Listen, I work from home, so that might change. But still, even when I work from home, I still got to work in teams. I can't. There's very little you can do working from home that allows you to just be by yourself, unless you're a genius programmer and you're left alone to your own devices. But you still have to answer someone. You can't just create on your own, unless it's your own company, right? But even if you have your own company, you still have to sell your product to someone. So there's still going to have to be some level of human interaction. How do you get children to be in spaces where they have to cooperate and think, you know, and apply the skill sets that they're learning? So that's the other thing I'm thinking about for this learning center that I want to organize or create. Then the other thing too is enrichment opportunities. What do I mean by enrichment opportunities? One thing I would say about the traditional school model is sucks so much life out of students. You know, not all students, but majority of students go to classroom and they just feel like, oh, I just gotta get out of here. You know, after I tell teachers, I used to tell teachers all the time that after about 8 minutes of you want, kids start to like zone out. There's some kids based on interest who connect with you and might connect with you for the whole entire period, which is rare. The human brain cannot sit and just take in information nonstop for typically more than 8 minutes. And that 8 minutes is really based on today's lifestyle, where we get information in chunks and we need time to process. So we know in the classroom setting where you might have 25 to 30 kids and so much going on and trying to teach, kids don't retain a lot of information. You know, but one thing I've learned is that kids retain information from doing. Every class I've ever taught, and the projects I've given for kids to do have always been around them doing research, digging deeper, and presenting those ideas, and having the consultancy of someone who can push their thinking and help them and guide them through a project and bringing all content knowledge together, right? So I want to create a space that is after school and weekends as well, where kids can come in, and we're talking about testing years, 3rd through 12. Those kids, they need to really be engaged critically in their thinking. Because one thing I would tell you is this: kids who have strong critical thinking skills always end up doing well in those state tests. You know, because you're able to process and look at information and be like, what are they trying to ask me here? And I've seen kids who don't study, don't do anything, and they take tests and they do extremely well. But they're able to like figure out, decode what's being asked of them. But if you're not able to do that because it's not something you're practicing, you're gonna struggle. You're gonna struggle tremendously, you know, in traditional academic settings. So I want to create a space that caters to that preschool families, also homeschool families, with offering selective courses, which are really project based. That kids can come, leave the house or leave what environment, spend a couple of hours in the center and work on these projects and really enhance their skills, right? Kind of like a laboratory environment to really push their critical thinking. Then also provide that same resource for kids who are in traditional school settings to come after school on weekends to do the exact same thing. And then I just mentioned 3 things, and then the last one is test prep. I'm sorry, I know I hate to say it, but standardized tests is a reality. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. The format might change, but it's still going to exist. I also want to create a space to really be able to support kids, like here in New York State with Regents exams, to support kids with SATs, the selective high school standardized tests for those middle schoolers trying to get into those specialized high schools here in New York City, and also GED prep. That's something we sleep on. I've been a proponent of kids who are struggling in school and show a high propensity for critical thinking, to, rather than drop out, study for the GED test and get that GED test. I've seen kids who have walked out of school their sophomore year, got their GED, and they were in college the next semester. And they're doing tremendously well because now they have a choice. They have a space where they can actually, really have their thinking pushed, rather than being in that factory model classroom where everybody is forced to move along the same pace. So this is what I'm thinking right now, and I'd like to get your feedback. What do you think? Is this something that you think that is needed? Do you have something like this in where you are? What does it look like? Share with me that company or organization's name, because I'm in the research phase right now. I want to start a space somewhere here near me, and maybe eventually open multiple spaces. I want to make this low cost and accessible to families, and go from there. I've been an educator, I've been a school leader for a number of years, and I know I have a skill set that I can apply in a way that makes sense to really support families and also support my children, because I'm literally building it with my children as the guinea pigs, because again, how do I ask families to trust me if I don't trust the system with my own, the system I'm creating, the process that I'm creating, if I don't trust it with my own children? Think about this before I leave. Over the course of my career, and this is not something that applies to everyone I've ever known, but in education, but the majority. Most teachers, most school administrators would not send their own kids to the schools that they work at. Crazy, right? Most of them would not even come close to even thinking about sending their own children to the school that they work at. A lot of them, if they can afford it, and if they can't afford it, send their kids to private schools. Will work the overtime and everything to make sure their kids are getting a better education than they themselves are providing for their own children. That they're providing for the children in their own schools. Think about that. And I'll tell you this is a question I've always asked of teachers and educators that I've worked with or I've led when I see things are not going the way they should be going. I always ask them this same question. If that classroom that I walked in and I saw that horrible lesson, or saw that lack of organization, or I saw that incredibly horrible classroom management, and you're there as a teacher, or you're there as an assistant principal, would you be okay with your children being in that same environment? You know what I usually get? Eyeballs to the feet and silence. And a few who are brave enough and honest enough will say, no, I would not allow my child to be in that environment. So my question is, why would you do that to other people's children if you wouldn't do it to your own children? So at the end of the day, that's my goal. I want to create a space that I can have my children in, and I think this thing can be done in a way that can be replicated by anyone. With all the educators out here who and all of us who are super educated and have these years of experience, we should be creating spaces, as a business model that supports families, that gives them options outside of the traditional school system. All right, I'm gonna stop talking there. Thank you so much for indulging me for this past 20 minutes. And this is Uche and Joker Sneaker Principal, and I'll talk to you all soon, all right? Peace.